Let's bring in our panel of political commentators now. I'm joined this week by Liberal commentator Susan Smith. Will Stewart is a Conservative commentator, and Farouk Karim is an NDP commentator. Good to see you all. Susan, let me start with you. Here we are with more confusion today over exactly how many doses of Pfizer vaccine Canada and the provinces will be receiving by the end of March. It seems to be hanging on this decision by Health Canada over how many doses can be extracted from each vial. And while that's all happening, here are some new numbers today. Canada has now fallen to 20th in the world in the number of vaccine shots delivered per capita, behind the UK, the US, Poland, Serbia, Romania, Portugal, Denmark, Germany, Israel, Bahrain, to name a few. So I guess let's start there. How satisfied should we be with the vaccination rollout in this country?
I think Canadians have a right to be confused at this point. There's definitely some confusion over whether or not these Pfizer vaccines have 5 doses or 6. And while they can be confused, I think in terms of those numbers, I think they should still remain confident that we will get the vaccines that we need when we need them. We're going to see over, I think it's 4 million vaccines by the end of Q1. The end of Q1 is the end of March, and they'll come in then. And we're going to get over 300,000 in the third week of February and nearly 400,000 in the fourth week of February. There's a pause right now because of the shutdown of the Pfizer plant in Belgium. The other good thing is there may be other vaccines that come online. The AstraZeneca one hasn't been approved yet by Health Canada. It's been approved in the UK, and that's why they're a little further ahead. They have more vaccines that they have access to. So I think while Canadians might be concerned at the moment, I think in the end, they should remain confident that anybody who wants a vaccine will get one, right. And they will start rolling off the production lines soon.
Will Stewart, earlier on the program, Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe told me that health workers in his province are getting 5.5 doses out of most vials, but they can't get the 6 doses. The federal government has proactively ordered now 37.5 million special syringes to try and extract the extra doses. But does it seem like Pfizer's putting this onus on Canada to get more doses out of each vial, even if that's not always possible, so that Pfizer can ship fewer vials? What we don't know is what happens if Pfizer and Health Canada disagree. What are the guarantees we'll get 4 million doses by the end of March? Do we have that?
Well, I think that's exactly the point. I mean, Susan had just mentioned we'll get the 4 million doses this month eventually, but that's only if Health Canada approves the 6 doses per vial as opposed to the 5. So Canadians have a right to be concerned. In fact, the government itself is confused on all of this. The messages change almost daily. There's no consistency in those messages. You know, we've gone from saying all Canadians who want a shot can get one by September to now saying all Canadians that want a shot can get one by the end of September. Well, that's another 30 days already. These little tiny changes every single day are causing confusion across Canada. You know, in order to get that 6th dose out of that vial, we need special needles. Guess what procurement doesn't have in Canada? The special needles to get the 6th dose out. So
they do say they're working on it, but I guess
they're working on it. Yeah. But I mean, the other countries that have this approved for 6 doses, they have the needles. They're getting 6 doses out of the vial. I appreciate that Health Canada needs to do their work, and I hope we get there as well. But again, if they were to approve it today, we don't have the needles to get the 6 doses out of the vial, and that's a procurement issue again.
Farouk, what's your view on what's happening here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's a concern for public health, but for Mr. Trudeau and the Liberals, it's a political concern because we are in a year highly likely that we're going to an election, and the vaccination plan of Mr. Trudeau is their card to go to the election, say we did things right, now we're ready to move on and to revive the economy. That's a problem for Mr. Trudeau the next months, right? But the other point I want to make is, as we go day to day, and there's a lot of confusion, I agree with the other panelists, there's a lot of confusion in numbers, and people are not really like following everything. Or am I going to get a vaccine? Is it delayed? So there's a lot of confusion day to day. But as much as we are confused day to day, we have to zoom out, and maybe the problem is at the root. And the problem is what? Is the plan. The plan says we're going to be all vaccinated now by the end of September, and there was going to be 3 million people vaccinated in the first quarter. Maybe that plan was not good enough. And why was that plan put in place is because originally we cannot produce our own vaccine. So we are at the mercy of others being polite and respecting their contracts. But in this situation where every country is scrambling to get vaccines and everybody has their national interest, everybody's going to scramble, and we don't have that leverage.
It's very competitive. Susan, one of the things the provinces are saying, look, there's a serious communication issue here that when they find out this morning. They're saying, they're expecting a certain level of dosage. They find out this morning from federal health officials, it could be 500,000 less if we don't resolve this dosage issue between Pfizer and Health Canada. I mean, we're a long way into this process now, and why are premiers still talking about communications issues with the federal government?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, look at Ontario today. They've been posting their vaccination numbers incorrectly. They have confusion in and amongst themselves, right? They were counting the number of doses administered and not the number of people who'd received their doses. Look, I think there's no playbook for a mass pandemic. Sadly, there isn't. And we're a federated country, and typically our feds and our provinces squabble with each other. They haven't been largely. They've been doing a good job, doing the best they can to do what they can for citizens. I think at the beginning, it would have been better to have the Army roll out across the country and administer and manage vaccines. We could have perhaps invoked the Emergencies Act, but the Prime Minister didn't want to do it because the provinces did not want it. So we're using the military in many provinces. We're using the expertise of our generals and of our military to do what's best we can in this massive country with urban and rural ridings, with mixed bags of hospital situations, with vaccines that have to be kept in deep freezers that nobody owned because we never had to own these virtually cryogenic freezers. So I think, yes, there have been stumbles along the way, but for a country as diverse as ours, be it both geographically and demographically, I think, and politically, we're doing okay. It's not perfect, but we can do. I think we can do better, but I think we're doing okay.
All right, Will, what's your view on this? On at least you folks are to some level all experts in communication, how to put messages out and people together. And why are we seeing this disconnect with premiers saying they just want a better information flow, that they're being caught off guard by these changes? Will?
Yeah, I totally agree. Look, everybody can be doing better in this, but I think that's the point, is this is the time when leadership matters. We all have to do better. All leaders have to do better in the public space and in the healthcare space. The message is changing so often from the federal government, even within the same week. And, we do have a federated system, as Susan points out. We also have a publicly funded healthcare system, which we're told and we believe is one of the best healthcare systems in the world. We're not the 20th healthcare system in the world. And I think there's a real challenge and a disconnect there for Canadians to wrap their heads around what's going on. I mean, we had the opportunity to buy more Moderna vaccines. The line from the government was, we've contracted for more vaccines than any other country in the world. Great, so we don't need more vaccines. 3 days later, they bought 20 million more doses of Pfizer vaccine on top of what they already had. But it didn't change the deadline for when we were all going to be vaccinated. So did we need more vaccines and didn't buy it? Then we didn't need more vaccines and we did.
All right,
the confusion here is paramount.
Give a final word to you, Karim, on this. That at the end of the day, a whole lot of Canadians, I think they listen to the debate, but for them it comes down to, they hear things like, how come other countries are beating us in the vaccination process? How come Canada's not doing better than it is? What's the answer?
Legitimate concern, Peter. Like we're 6 weeks away from commemorating the 1 year of the pandemic. There's a lot of frustration. People have lost their job. People have lost members of their family. So there's a lot of frustration, and they're seeing around each other, around the world, other countries doing better. So that creates a lot of anxiety. Coming back to the provinces, because of the nature of our federation, there's so many separation of powers. Everybody's relying on the others, right, to do something. And in addition to that, because of that ongoing frustration from the public, there's pressure on our elected leaders, and provincial leaders, premiers, will not take away the chance to blame the federal on this thing. So that's
Peter.
We have to break it off for there. We're out of time, but we'll have a time to revisit this, I'm sure. This pandemic continues, and so does the response. But thank you all for your time tonight. Good to talk to you.
Thank you.
Take care.